When I was a wee lad, if you had asked me what my favourite TV show was growing up, I would have said Bottom. Bottom was the spiritual successor to The Young Ones, and it starred Rik Mayall as the perverted, clumsy, and pathetic Richard, and Adrian Edmondson as the permanently drunk, violent, and deceptively intelligent Edward Hitler.
Any relation?
Well, I've got a mother.
The show was about their boring, meaningless days, showcasing their failed attempts at making money and trying to get laid. I've watched the show so much, I can quote it word for word to the point where I've sadly become desensitized to it. What I still love, however, are the live shows. I will try and watch these live shows at least once a year. It's hard to say which one is my favourite, it's not Bottom Life 4, but the one I have probably watched the most is Bottom Life 3. This one is the most unique, however, because the entire series at this point, as well as the first two live shows, are set in Richie and Eddie's flat. Hooligans Island, on the other hand, is on a deserted island. This is a brand new setting for our smelly heroes, which is used in the very first half of Bottom Life 4, and was the plot for a doomed spin-off series that never happened, but that's another story for another day. Richie and Eddie are on the run from the police, and yada, they've been stranded on a desert island for 3 years. The best part of the shows, though? The bloopers. By the way, for context, if you're wondering why he's trying to set a carrot on fire, it's an exploding carrot. This show was weird. If you've not seen Bottom before, you've seen the title of this video and you might be thinking to yourself, how did this video not get age restricted? That's what Bottom calls the bloopers. They call them the fluffs. Just like any other TV show or movie, you're bound to forget your lines once in a while, and because of that there's a collection of bloopers for seasons 1, 2 and 3 for Bottom. And yes, they do mess up their lines in the live shows as well. In fact, there is a certain blooper that happens in Hooligans Island that was so egregious that it became part of the storyline. In the first act of Hooligans Island, Richie and Eddie encounter several cannibals, but they're not just cannibals, they're Welsh cannibals. Oh wow, great example of Welsh representation there, boys. What's next? You gonna call us sheep shaggers? Or show us Van Geffen's text messages? Whatever. Richie is shot with a poisoned dart, and it doesn't look good for him. Unknown to Richie, however, Eddie has been living off the alcohol and booze in a secret World War II Japanese bunker for 3 years. Thankfully for Richie, Eddie has a cure to the poison, which is in the bunker. Now, Richie is not supposed to find out about this until Act 2, but then this happens.
Eddie! What on earth is that?
It's a Japanese Army Second World War medical kit in mint condition.
Wow! But anyway, on earth did you...
There was a little mistake there, wasn't there? Did you spot it?
This results in Rik Mayall having a giggling fit, which he tries but fails to conceal. So, what do you do in a situation like this? I mean, this must be a very scary situation in any play where you forget your lines and you completely and utterly bomb. So, what do you do here? Well, if we've learned anything from Opening Night or Curb Your Enthusiasm, you improvise, of course. So, Adrian Edmondson improvises with a story that the poisoned dart has given Richie temporary amnesia, and a side effect that includes excessive giggling. Therefore, Richie has completely forgotten about the Japanese bunker until he discovers it in Act 2. This is before Richie gets a giant needle up his ass. Thankfully for Rick and Aid, this isn't a serious dramatic play, and it's not like it would have ruined their careers if they actually did bomb on stage. After all, this is a show that is literally based on mindless slapstick, fart humor, and the double act of Adrian and Rik Mayall that was highly inspired by Laurel and Hardy. Pretty impressive that Rick and Aid turned a screw-up as bad as this around, right? Right? Well, what if I told you that this blooper may have actually been staged and actually was done on purpose? This has been a huge talking point for years among fans of Bottom, but it has been highly speculated for decades that most of the fluffs on the live shows were actually scripted. For example, in the second live show for Bottom, Rik Mayall slaps his wrist and says, "Come on, come on." He slowly turns around to Aid and asks him, Remember that great watch gag I had? To which Aid responds, yes, with a big shit-eating grin on his face, and then Rik says, forgot to put the watch on. Seems like an easy mistake that could be made, right? Well, this person went onto Reddit to ask what this apparent great watch gag was. Hello UK, I've always been a fan of the Bottom series with Rik Mayall and Adrian Edmondson. They did a few live tours in the 90s I think it was. A little background, in their second live tour, there's a part in the recorded video edition where Rik Mayall stands next to Adrian and says, hey, you know my really great watch gag? I forgot to put my bloody watch on. My question is, did anyone see the Bottom 2 live tour and remember what the watch gag was? I've thought about this for the last 20 years or so. If anyone can help, I would be very grateful. Thanks guys, hope this is the right place for this. Here is the response that he got. That was the gag. He did it in every show. I remember my mate seeing him on the tour a couple of times and was disappointed that a few of the apparent ad-lib bits, including one where they both cracked up over one of the jokes, was actually scripted. It looks like this was a lie. They lied to us. Oh, re-scared mad! Re-scared angry!
Well, that's shagged that then, hasn't it?
Haha, he can't spell male properly. That's like not being able to pronounce the word free. Wait. Free. Oh, fuck it. Sadly, this isn't a one-off either, because there's another post from Reddit that actually confirms the exact same thing. In ways, it is almost disappointing. That's why a magician never reveals his secrets. But on the other hand though, they actually make the live shows a little bit more interesting to watch. Because we now have the hindsight that Rik and Aid purposely messed up their line, it does make you wonder which fluff was real, but which one is scripted. In fact, there's another interesting blooper that happens earlier in Bottom Live too. In order to progress the story, Richie needs to find Eddie's great uncle Susan's wartime diary, which leads to a very interesting line.
In Great Uncle Susan's wartime diary.
Fantastic!
That was a bit of luck, wasn't it? Wasn't there last night, was it?
This line sounds so casual that when someone watches this, they think to themselves, what did they miss last night then? Which only fuels the mystery further. Once again, this feels like a genuine mistake that could actually happen, right? Well, on the podcast Talking Bottom, they don't think this was real because this is what they had to say about it.
Joke that references a possible mistake when they get the recipe for the vodka and then they say, oh, it was handy that was there. Wasn't there last night, was it? Like having a go at stagehand. Do you think that's real?
No, again, I think they put these things in. If you're in the audience, you want to feel that the performance you're getting that night is unique. So they put in things like that, and then you think, on my night, I got that. Only the people in this room experience that.
Talking Bottom podcast is run by Paul, Matt and Angela, where they've interviewed several people that have worked on the show Bottom, and they feel that the reason that Aid and Rik faked most of these fluffs was just to give the audience a unique experience. When Rik and Aid throw small throwaway lines in this, it makes the viewers think that they're watching something special and unique. Only to be disappointed later when they see the VHS tape.
You watch it when it's been recorded and you go, they did that on every single night.
Now, I personally don't believe that every single blooper was scripted. However, there's a very, very interesting interview on Talking Bottom with Ed Bai, which I highly recommend that you listen to. Ed Bai is a production manager and TV director who worked on Bottom, The Young Ones, and Red Dwarf. Bai also directed a few episodes of Bottom, but he also directed Bottom Live 3. When he was asked about the scripted fluffs, he said this: I don't know, but I can guess. It was very rare in those days for Rik to ever forget the line. When I was shooting Hooligans Island, I was listening to a guy, and when he went, "It's amazing, I've seen the show before, and they forgot their lines in the same place." Ed Bai also went on to say that the stage shows were directed by themselves. They, Rik and Adrian, directed them in terms of the action and everything else. I'm not really a stage director, so I filmed it. This comment about Rik and Aid directing the show makes a lot of sense, mainly because in the live shows, Rik and Adrian would constantly make fun of the stage props, and apparently they made them look so bad to make things a lot funnier for the show.
No, it's returns! out here in the wild, Eddie, is just so much more crap.
Oh, look. Here they come back.
I also want to comment on what Ed Bai said about Rik not forgetting his lines. This to me is very interesting. As everybody knows at this point, Rik Mayall was in a serious quad bike accident on the 9th of April 1998 where he suffered several head injuries and was put into a coma. After Rik got out of the coma, he and Adrian Edmondson started filming the Bottom movie, Guest House Paradiso, and it has been documented that Rik did have a lot of trouble remembering his lines, rightfully so. By the way, thank God Rik Mayall didn't die in this accident, because that actually would have been my second birthday otherwise. Rik Mayall dying would have been the second worst birthday gift that I ever got, with the number one place being that piece of shit Star Wars lightsaber toy that didn't work properly. So, if we take Ed Bai's words literally that Rik Mayall did not forget his lines, does that mean that the fluffs in Bottom's Life 4 and 5 weren't actually scripted and Rik Mayall did mess up a few times then? Keep in mind that the 4th and 5th live shows were made after the quad bike accident.
If only I'd fixed those brakes properly.
If you want to go into the situation even deeper, does that mean that Rik and Adrian purposely messed up their lines when they were filming the TV series? Who knows at this point?
Oh, is that it? That's ridiculous. I paid £3 for that ride. That's an absolute outrageous rip-off. I mean, especially considering it's two juveniles like you and me shouldn't have to pay full whack anyway.
Calm down. Should we start again?
Yeah, it's another.
And now, with all that context, this brings us back to the Japanese bunker scene. Was it real or was it fake? In my opinion, I still think the jury's out on this one. If you go to Reddit, well, actually you shouldn't go to Reddit in the first place, you will see people claiming on the forums that this gag was done in multiple live shows in order to get a reaction from the live crowd. However, when I was watching the Talking Bottom episode of Hooligans Island, there's a very interesting comment that I saw on the video. I will show this on screen, but let me paraphrase. Hooligans Island is the only one I managed to catch live. I saw it in the first week of the tour. The video comes from the final week. From what I recall, the main differences are the Japanese bunker door mistake didn't happen, and when they enter the bunker, they have a chat with a Japanese barman, voiced by one of Rik or Aid in a Japanese accent, which they either edited out for VHS or had stopped doing by the latter part of the tour. I can see why they didn't put that in. Oh wait. Never mind. Now, again, the multiple Reddit posts that confirm that the Japanese bunker scene happened in several live shows do overshadow this one, and maybe this is a fragmented memory from the commenter, but it kinda gives me hope a little bit, because let's go back to our original point. If these bloopers were faked, why were they faked? And if so, what was the idea behind them? As Ed Bai said, Rik and Aid directed the live shows, so what I think happened is that Rik and Adrian came up with a lot of jokes, but to keep people on their toes, they did not tell anyone, including Ed Bai, the sound guys, or the prop guys. If it's true that Rik and Aid planned these gags without anyone knowing, that's ingenious, but I won't lie, if Rik and Aid called me out for no reason on stage, I would kind of shit my pants.
Luck, wasn't it? Wasn't there last night, was it?
The fuck did I do?
The most commonly believed theory behind the scripted fluffs is that the Japanese bunker scene actually did happen in an unaired live show, and it was so funny that Rik and Aid had to recreate it for the cameras. This idea is definitely not contrived, and I think it is probably the most accurate version of the story. And once again, it makes the live shows even more interesting because it makes you wonder what happened when the cameras weren't rolling, what great gems did we not see here, and what improvisations and what heckles did we not see in the live shows. Oh, and speaking of heckles, let's talk about a heckle that was so common in the live shows that also became part of the story.
What should we do to pass the time?
This heckle happened without fail in every single live show, to the point where Rik Mayall and Adrian Edmondson expected this in every single show. And they decided to put it in the plot of the 5th live show.
Professor!
In weapons-grade Y-fronts, Eddie Hitler creates a time machine out of the toilet called the TARDIS, and they use this to go to the bar. Unfortunately, they get lost in time for 3.5 years. Eventually, the time machine's battery runs out, and the only way that they can get the battery back up is to repower the ship via friction.
Friction?
For Richie and Eddie to get a lot of friction, Eddie gives Richie a collection of magazines for him to look at. Rik declares to the audience,
Eddie, I'm sitting all on my own in the toilet with a little dirty match in one hand and my knob in the other. What on earth should I do? I beg your pardon? I can't hear you say it again. Hey, that's a good idea.
Rik and Adrian knew for a fact that this heckle was going to be shouted out, and they already wrote it into the story. Would have been awkward if they didn't shout it out.
We had a wank in the interval. And I bet you had one as well, didn't you? Because you look like a wanker.
One of the main reasons that I'm bringing this up here is because in the live shows that are actually on video, you don't see a lot of bad or antagonistical heckles. There's only one that we see that actually happens in weapons grade Y-fronts, and here it is.
Eddie. Thank God.
Doing your own play at the back there.
Rik and Aid, being the professionals they are, they shut them down very easily. I will say though, was this a staged heckle? I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, but it does make you wonder if these people were put in, because the time that they turn around, it feels almost perfect in a way. But it all comes back to my point about Rik and Adrian. If these bloopers were faked, and if these hecklers were put in without anyone else knowing, it really goes to show you how talented and how creative Rik and Adrian Edmondson were. Rik Mayall and Adrian Edmondson's comedic timing and deliveries were absolutely perfect, and the live shows are a testament to that. Aid and Rik could seamlessly play themselves, but then transition into their characters within seconds. When trying to explain the massive plot hole, it's Eddie, but when he's jokingly telling the crowd to give it a chance, it's Adrian improvising. When Rik is screaming,
Did you find it? Where did you find it?
it's Richie. But when he is giggling uncontrollably, it's Rik Mayall losing the plot. We will probably never know which blooper was faked and which one was real, and that goes as well for the television show and not just the live shows. If the majority of them were faked, it made the audiences feel special, and it made it feel like they were watching something unique every single time. We watched these shows when we were kids, and we thought this was improvised magic taking place before our eyes, but it was all an illusion. And that is okay. A bit disappointing, but it's fine. If anything, it increases the rewatchability of the live shows. Oh well, looks like they're here. Before I give myself to the authorities on my charges of tax evasion, I am going to show two bloopers that I think were not scripted and unintentionally happened. Here they are.
Get this for a punch in the bollocks!
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, fuck it. Come back in.
It's all right, Richie. 3 kids already.
Wake up! Wake up! Look, he's laughing at me! He wants me to go to prison! Look at him smiling, you bastard! You bastard! You bastard! Calm down! I am calm!
Hey guys, if you like this video, then please hit that bell. And then hit yourself over the head with it.
Bloody hell!